Sorry to interrupt. Okay, we're set.
Yeah. Do you want me to start presenting where we're at? Like,
sure, that would be good, giving a little bit of a background. Just if anybody's just stepping into this, they can know what we're doing.
All right. So we are at chapter 7, asking question, page 22 of the book, Listening Well from William Miller, exploring ways to practice the teachings, listening well, empathic listening, and figure exercise that we can do, all of us. And so today, I was thinking to do a check-in using the question I ask, the welcome question, and we'll do the check-in in an empathic circle. As a reminder, the questions are: in your empathic listening practice, what is the one example you can share where you practice empathic listening with someone and you saw the impact it has? And what were the impact on the person and on you? That's the first part of the question. And same question about self-empathy. What kind of example you can find in your life where you use self-empathy and the impact that you felt. So I thought we can share our answers in an empathy circle format.
Mm-hmm.
Who would like to start?
I'll start and I'll speak to you.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have time limits, or it's just open time, however?
Let's wing it.
Okay, live dangerously.
Be dangerously empathic.
That's the right place to do that.
Okay, so I'm seeing the question is two parts. One is, do we have an empathic listening practice? So the practice is more of the formal, formal practice versus just that we do it, sort of spontaneously. And for the empathy practice, I do periodic empathic listening with my partner, Joan, who's right over here. There she is. Hi, Joan. Everybody says hi. And so I think it helps with the communication and sense of connection. So we had been doing it every day. Sometimes we do it every day, and kind of recently we haven't done it as often. So it kind of shifts, like we do it for a while every day, and then sometimes it kind of drops off, then we pick it up again, etc. So I'll let you reflect that.
Thank you. Yeah. So I hear there's you can see the impact on practicing empathic listening when you're practicing with your partner, that it creates a deeper connection and better communication. And it seems to come and goes, like it comes in waves. Like it's either you do it regularly, and then sometimes you would slow down, and sometimes it would come back up.
Yeah, and so it's good for, I think, connection, addressing relational issues, and so that's kind of one practice. And I put a link there to a family empathy story, which I don't want to go into now, but I've written up a whole story of how I did there was a conflict in the extended family, and I did a mediation, an empathic mediation, and it was fairly, really successful, I think kind of transformative. So I did write that up, but it's like an extended story. So I just giving kind of the short version, just a short story here.
Cool. So yeah, you're saying you use empathy listening as a tool personally a lot, and I love that. Thank you for putting the link. That's great that you had. I remember, is it the story about Christmas?
Yeah, that's the one.
How you saw the impact right away. There was a big conflict. Everybody was there, and then, if I remember correctly, in the end, everybody was hugging each other.
Right.
Belonging. So you can definitely noticing the impact directly, personally.
Yeah. That wasn't the practice. I think when you say practice, it's like a regular thing that you're doing. So that's kind of what when I hear the question practice, that was sort of spontaneous event versus, kind of a regular practice. So I guess when you say practice, that's what comes to mind is, and I do, the second question was the self-empathy. And again, I don't have a practice per se, like a regular scheduled practice for that, but I have an empathy buddy who, we have once a week, actually on Thursdays, for an hour we meet. I speak for half an hour. He just listens, and then vice versa. And so just being heard is sort of a self-empathy practice in that sense. But I don't have like a practice where I just, do something on my own, like meditate or something. Yeah. So.
Yeah. See, you're wondering if this is clear enough to like, if there's need some clarity around what do you mean by practicing, and you're wondering this is something like a ritual that you clearly doing consciously all the time, or it's just something that comes more naturally. And I'll answer that later for what I meant by practice, but for now I would like to finish the reflection. You were also mentioning that for you self-empathy is about setting up the time for you to receive empathy, and that you have that every single week with an empathy buddy.
Yeah, for the self-empathy. I see that just being heard by someone is like a form of self-empathy, right? For 30 minutes, I just get heard. And it's really I see that as self-empathy, and that is practice.
Yeah. Like having that set up with someone else is giving you the empathy that you need. So for you, it's a self-empathy practice. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel heard. Thanks.
Thank you. To answer your wasn't really a clear question, but I like you're wondering about what I meant by practice. I guess what I meant was when are you conscious that you're doing it? For me, it's not necessarily setting up a ritual like every morning you do 10-minute guided meditation or whatever. It could be that. And it could be also, for me, I approach it more as like, when was I intention? When was I clear on my intention at this time?
Well, it sounds like you're speaking to me, so I'm going to reflect back what I'm hearing.
Well, I was answering your question.
So what I'm hearing is that a question came up for me, and you want to answer that question. And to answer the question about what a practice is, for you, practice is sort of the intentionality of having the intentionality where you're kind of conscious and intentional about using empathic listening. And that's what you're meaning by practice. Yeah,
because I see that on the long term, for me, it becomes a habit. So that's what maybe you called it's natural. For me, if something natural is mean that it's a habit, and a habit can be, created intentionally. And the more you do it, the more it becomes a second nature that you don't think about it. And so the practice for me is kind of like the beginning of creating a habit. Yeah.
So practice is more like you have intention of what you're doing, just in how you relate to other people or yourself, and then you have an intentionality, and it becomes a habit, and then it kind of gets integrated in you.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Do you feel heard?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Well, I will speak back to you. Thank you for that explanation. I'm grateful because I feel it was illuminating, so I'm grateful for that explanation.
All right, so it did help you to clarify.
Yeah, and I feel heard.
Me too. Sorry, Rita, if you want to go.
So it's your turn now.
Oh yeah, sorry. Well, I'll ask Rita to listen to me. So to answer those two questions, the first one, example of when I use empathic listening, when I'm conscious of it, like you would, when actually with a lot with my partner, and I even said it out loud when I want empathy from him. And he knows also now how it looks like when I do empathy on him. Because I also can ask him like, can I reflect back, or would you like some advice on that? And so the past few months we've been doing that more and more, and it does bring a lot of tension down. Like, we never raise our voices even when we are feeling frustrated or whatever. It does definitely help with communication. Like, it's often misunderstanding, often misinterpretation of, I thought you meant that. Then the person can say, oh, you're thinking that I meant that. And then the person can then come back and say, actually, no, that's not what I meant. And then, so it's definitely help with clear communication. And like Edwin pointed out as well, I find myself deeper connection, deeper trust that no matter what's going to happen now, we know that we have ways. We call it the secret weapon. We have ways to deal with whatever. Like, it feels almost like, not that we're invincible in a relationship, but that, wow, we are building this trust every single day in our way to communicate. That makes it easier when something big might happen. We feel prepared. I'm done for now. I'll go with the self-empathy later.
I appreciate that, because there is
sorry, I tend to talk too much.
There is a lot, because it's really deep. The way you practice the empathy with your partner, it goes both ways. When you want empathy, you just say, at this point, all I want is empathy. And so you're really clear to express. And the same way, when you are about to give empathy to your partner, you ask if you can reflect. So you were talking about the consciousness of empathy practice, and it seems that really symbolizes this consciousness. So it's like wrapping your relationship in a way that it creates a safety bubble where you can explore any of the misunderstanding. You've said we never raised our voice, and it seems that you imply, since we have that secret weapon, it seems to tell how much you rely on the empathic connection that you've created, knowing that you're safe with each other as long as you are using this way of communicating, and it's bringing you so close and so secured in your relationship.
It's one of the ways. It's not, we don't only use that, but it's one of the big ways, yeah, to build the trust and the connection.
So that's one strategy that you are using to support everything else that you do together, to be this trusting and be comfortable in your couple.
Perfect. Yeah, I feel heard about that. Yeah. Thank you. And to answer the self-empathy question, it's a big challenge, I find, for me, self-empathy. Catching my own thought, because I tend to I speak fast and speak a lot, but it's worse in my mind. So sometimes it's even hard for myself to catch my own thought, and I get in this negative loop very fast of victimizing myself, whatever. And so self-empathy, when I'm able to catch my thoughts and be like, oh, okay, so what's happening? And I try to, in my head, literally reflecting back, okay, I'm using more NVC actually, like, what are the needs? What are the emotions? What are the emotions that can get to what need? and then usually my mind gets calmer and clearer, and it helps me to be a bit more grounded and keep myself in a with a perspective that it's less just about me, and like being like, okay, it allows me to expand more and have a bigger view of like things, and to dramatize less.
Again, starting with the ongoing speedy talk in your own head. As much as you speak fast, you have sometimes it's not so natural to catch yourself in that negative spiral where you can go, and when you do, the way you're using self-empathy is through the NVC steps, which bring you through being conscious of where you are, what you are feeling, and how you are feeling, and from there discovering the needs that that are frustrated, or that you are hoping to fulfill. There was something I'm missing more than that. You were saying that brings, doing that slows down, it seems, the talk, and help you ground yourself. And you talked about being less in the drama, and more in the moment. So
Yeah.
self-empathy helps you with being finding a little bit more peace.
Yeah, that reminds me the triangle Suzanne was when we were doing the training on the compassion listening with her. The triangle, what is it, victim, hero, villain, or something like that. I'm able to get out of that triangle when I'm able to give myself the empathy that I need. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Feeling heard.
Adrian, you wanna
Sure.
hear how I'm noticing that I'm a mediator, and when someone calls in with their difficult stories, most of the time all I do is listen with empathy, and often they will start the call in distress, and when we end the conversation they say, "Whew, just speaking with you was such a relief." They have no clue what I did. They had no clue that they have no clue about empathy. They saw in their world, and yet they're being touched by that sense of being heard and being felt. And so when someone says, "I feel relieved," I know that empathy worked.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty rewarding. It's very rewarding. And often when I don't know what to do, I revert to empathy, and it brings me where it needs to go. So it's quite amazing. About self-empathy,
Maybe I can reflect that component first.
Yes, of course.
So you work as a mediator, and people call you, and they just start sharing all of their frustrations with you, and you just listen to them empathically, and at the end of it they feel a real sense of relief. It's like, oh, it felt so good to talk with you, and they feel much better and have a lot of feelings of relief, but they don't know what it is that you did that made them feel so much better. They don't realize that it's this empathic listening that you were doing that made them feel better. And so it's a big component of the work that you do.
Thank you, Adrian. And about self-empathy, I consciously use it when I really feel bad about something that I said or something that I did. just to give a short example, my grandson, who is 4, was here the other day, and he was trying to open a jar of yogurt in a glass one, and I was saying, I'm afraid it's gonna fall, and he said, no, it's not gonna fall, and it fell. And, and there was yogurt and glass all over the kitchen. We were in a rush, and I reacted when it happened. I was angry. And then I saw his little face. He felt so bad. You could feel how he felt bad, and immediately I felt bad of having had that immediate reaction. And I took a big breath and thought, okay, let's start with self-empathy before I can deal with that. And I did realize that I was in a rush, and also that I wanted him to not be scared of making things. So I apologize for having been upset, and I was able to convey that I love him no matter what. and the next one, when he opened it, he said, "Oh, you know what? You're gonna open it." And I said, "No, I trust you." I had this ability because I had done self-empathy, and I said, "I'm just gonna stay around in case it flies away again." So yeah, it's useful. It's so useful.
Okay, so the way you're looking at self-empathy is that was it your grandson, did you say? Yeah, so your grandson was wanting to open something, and you were kind of warning him that it was going to fall, and he said, no, I'll do it, and it won't, and then it happened, and then you felt really upset, so you got a little kind of angry, and you're noticing your own anger. And that's where you had the self-empathy, like, okay, kind of having a sense of oh, you're seeing that he was upset. He was afraid by your anger. And then so you're sort of aware of that. You didn't want him to feel, fear, upset. So you really kind of apologized for it and sort of self-empathized with yourself around that anger, and that kind of sounds like it gave you more space, and you were able to apologize to him for getting angry, and it kind of helped repair. And then later on, it was like another time you wanted to open something, and this time he wanted you to do it, and it sounds like you wanted to give him, responsibility, or show that you care for him and you trust him, and you just were overseeing him opening the jar. So it seems like it helped you with reestablishing the connection with him.
Yes, thank you, Edwin. It's awful, this feeling. Oh, I did something that was hurtful. And with self-empathy, you in fact, it's to accept that you've done something you wish you didn't do, and that's where I find self-empathy really useful.
Okay, so the self-empathy helps with accepting that you did something that you wish you hadn't done.
Yeah,
having some acceptance for it, like, I did this, and I have to accept it.
Oh well, I'm human too.
I'm human too. I did this.
Thank you.
Okay.
Feel complete.
Right. Thank you, everybody. The next step, I wanted to do a really short guided meditation that I called I only call it universe. I call it the universe perspective. I thought it could be fun to kind of go back a bit in our body and get out of our body. As I was thinking of empathy, I was also thinking it's about putting yourself in someone else's shoes. And I thought, what about putting ourselves in the universe's shoes this time? So you already seated, so make sure you have your feet on the ground.
I change seat.
Okay. Feet on the ground that you are comfortable, that you can sit up straight and you can close your eyes. And we are just going to start with 3 deep, long breaths when you're going to breathe in through your nose and breathe out through your mouth. Really breathe in everything you can breathe in and through your mouth. Breathe in and breathe out. And as you breathe out, on the last breath, get in touch with your body. Starting with your feet. Your feet solidly on the ground. And get a sense of where your body is touching something. So your feet on the ground, your legs on the chair, your back. Notice the contact that your body is making. And do a quick scan from the feet to head. Noticing any tension and just let it go. Just get a strong sense of your body. And once you have a sense very clearly of your body, I want you to think of the room you're in now. If there's any noise around, you have almost like a memory map in your mind of where are the doors, maybe if there's someone in a room, where they are. Think of what's behind you, in front of you. And the next step is you leaving the place you're in right now and you're thinking of the street that your building or your apartment is in. You have a sense of where you are located in your district or area. If there's a park nearby, the streets that are around. And we're going to continue to zoom out. Now imagine the whole city and where you are in this city. Imagine the borders of the city, the green spaces maybe. Get a sense of how big it is. And once that's clear in your mind, zoom out just a little bit more of the province that you're in, or the region that you're in. Where are the rivers, the mountains, highways? Now zoom out a little bit more to the whole country you are in. You have a sense of the whole country as a whole. You can see where it starts when it stops in your mind. And now zooming out to the whole continent. All the oceans around it. The forest around. The countries have no clear borders anymore. It's just lands and water. And now zoom out completely on the whole planet. It's like you're watching it from space now. And just observe it with curiosity. This amazing, round, blue planet. Enjoy the view for a few seconds. Keep breathing calmly. Let's take a big inhale and a big exhale now. And now we're going to zoom back in. Gradually go back to the continent. Notice if something changed. Are you noticing something new you haven't seen before? And zooming in a bit more now in your own country. It's gradual, it's smooth. And nicely zoom in again in your area. You start to see a bit more clearly streets, roads, rivers. And zoom in again to your town. Slowly zooming in. You're starting to get a sense of where you are located in the town. Zoom in again. It's your street. Zoom in on your apartment or your house, your garden, if you have one. And now you enter inside your apartment. mental map of where the doors are, all the rooms, the kitchen, the bedrooms. Go back to where you are now. Get in touch with your body again. You are seated at your desk. We're going to take another deep inhale and exhale, and we're going to open our eyes. Exhale through your mouth and inhale through your nose. Last one. And when you're ready, open your eyes. And you can stretch if you want. I'll come back to your shoes. Very quickly, I was curious to know how it was for you. Rita, if you want to start.
Was a nice trip. From becoming a tiny, tiny, tiny dot, almost invisible, and then coming back to my full self. Powerful.
Powerful. Okay, thank you. What about you, Edwin?
I've been feeling a little kind of low energy and from really focusing so much, kind of mentally focusing. So I feel kind of constricted, kind of in sort of flat affect. And I noticed by opening up, it's just create a lot more space. I just feel a lot more open, less of that constriction. And just kind of also amazed at how we can kind of place ourselves in sort of a three-dimensional world, and kind of visualize. I can visualize the street. I can have sort of these pictures that kind of come up. And so it was very, felt really good. Feel much more spacious and, less constricted. So.
Oh, awesome. So a space trip gave you more space.
Yeah, space trip.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for the feedback. I wanted now to move to the book itself and chapter. And my idea in that space was to, it's almost one, so in about half an hour, having first few minutes of discussion about what the chapter did for you, what you learned and what you didn't learn, what was new or not new for you. And then I would like, once we have shared our experience with reading the chapter, getting into practicing, as William suggested on his book, the Try It, when we're going to do the 10 questions, more than 10 questions, because I want to be conscious of the time, as I want to leave some time, Edwin, to chat about the group itself afterwards. So let's do just 10 questions with the speaker and 2 listeners and practice this, the closed questions. If we have time, I was hoping to practice the open-ended question to see the contrast, those two. But it's not. I'm not necessarily. I don't necessarily want it absolutely, because it's not in a Try It, and I also again want to be aware of leaving us sometimes to chat afterwards. So does that sound good?
Yeah.
Cool. So Edwin, if you want to start reading this chapter, what was something that was new for you, or something that you're like, no, not so much for me?
Mm-hmm. Are we doing reflection or just kind of open discussion?
Just open discussion.
Okay. Well, it's about questions. So I think about, questions as being a block to empathy. I know that later on in the book, he talks about instead of asking questions, that you sort of get the same effect of someone kind of going deeper by offering that empathic listening. So it's sort of contrasting the question asking as a way of kind of going deeper versus the empathic listening, presence, reflecting what you hear, and you go deeper too. So it's about how do you go deeper. And I use a lot of questions. When I was kind of younger, I would kind of use questions a lot to kind of navigate, when I relate to people as a way of engaging, kind of made me feel comfortable to know how to relate, just ask people a lot of questions. So, so those are some things that kind of come up that I'm thinking about.
Yeah, I'm seeing on the book, like a simple guideline is not to ask 3 questions in a row, and I feel like for you, it might have been like, oh, okay, I used to ask tons of questions to help me relate, but it's not now it's not necessarily the case anymore, and you know how to do it.
Yeah, I try to do more empathic listening versus questioning, so that.
Yeah, I like what you were saying about as well, this idea of asking question is a roadblock in a way too, and how we can. So what does that mean then for the empathic listening to ask question?
Yeah. So what was you're curious about how does questioning and empathic listening relate?
Yeah, like I thought it was a good point that you pointed out, that we just saw before the roadblocks, chapter 5 roadblocks, and asking question is like our roadblocks. So this chapter is interesting to be like, it's a lot to ask question, just be aware the way it's done is important. It's the quality of the way it's done that matters, but it's not out of the picture completely.
Yeah, or the context too, I think of human-centered design is a process for designing something, and part of it is asking questions. Oh, they have an exercise called the 5 whys. So you ask somebody, like, we did it in one of the groups, like, why are you interested in empathy? And then you hear the response, and you say, well, why are you interested in that? And then why are you interested in that? So you can kind of get to some deeper whys by asking those 5 whys, which is kind of a questioning approach.
Interesting.
Yes, I'm curious where everyone else is around questions. Like, what do you think? Like Rita is very, doesn't ask a lot of questions. It's more, it kind of creates a space for.
It's. Are you passing on the?
Oh, I don't know. I thought we're just free. Anybody's just saying anything they want. So.
Yeah. When I read this chapter, I thought, is there anything I'm learning in this chapter? Because in most of the trainings that I've received, it's like this open or closed question. It's such a basic. It's so basic. I like that the chapter, while saying question, be careful of how many questions you ask. The quote from Albert Einstein is, the important thing is to not stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existence. So questions have of course, a raison d'être. And often clarification is one. I was remembering I did some improv. One of the exercise in improv was to ask a question, and we were not allowed to respond in any other way than with another question. And that exercise in itself was hilarious, and we couldn't have a conversation. That really brings you, okay, just be careful of questions that you ask. So it brought me there. And
well, I didn't quite get that. It's like you ask a question and the person responds with a question.
yeah, you're not allowed to just respond, like, you know, in that in the exercise that we may or may not do after, you can only respond by yes or no. Here you could only respond by another question.
Oh, uh-huh.
So if you ask me how old are you, I would respond, why are you interested? and so
and then it's like, why don't you want to tell me?
why are you wondering about that? So yeah,
so it can keep going, kind of opens things up.
Or close them down, because we go nowhere. Yeah.
It sounds funny how it could also get very much in the defensive. Why are you asking me this question?
But that is
the question.
that is with the why, actually, where I can go there. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, I love your example of the improvisation, Rita. As a coach, you know, I was trying to ask questions, so I really relate to this chapter. And I was surprised, actually, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think he's talking about why. And I was surprised about that, because one of the first things I've learned was why, even though we think it's a type of question I could invite answers and connect, and by connection, it's not. And I remember the whole first course was about only asking question of what and how. Like, not what, why did you say that, but what do you mean, for example. That was the why. Was the exercise was to take the why completely out of the question of the question, because it often has some judgmental taste in a why. And I remember it had really stuck with me. And when I was reading this chapter, I was surprised that I totally get, you know, the difference between open-ended question and closed-ended question, and how closed-ended question can have their very specific use, like he's mentioning fact gathering. If you want a yes or no question, I mean, if you go in a government setting and they just want you to say yes or no, it's sometimes it helps. But to create connection, open-ended questions are obviously more of an engaging. But I was surprised that there was no mention of like the why. That why is actually not it's a faux ami, like it's not a helpful approach.
I think it does address the why in further down chapter.
Oh, in other, I haven't finished reading the whole.
If I remember well, I think I have read it further down.
Oh, okay. So he's going to talk about it later on. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like the why gets you back towards the needs. You think, you know, if you ask someone why, if you keep getting back, you know, keep asking, like that 5 whys question out of the design community. And we actually did that in one of the groups. You know, I asked, like, can't remember what the question was, but, you know, why are you interested in empathy? And then, well, I like connection. Well, why do you like connection? Because it feels good. Well, why does it feel good? So you get, it seems like it takes you back to more of a need, you know, that you have the underlying need, which can be helpful. I just watched a training through Organizing for Action, which is Obama's political group, and they were talking about getting to the why. You know, like, why are you motivated for whatever your activism is about, so that when you talk to people, you talk about your why, and that helps you connect, you know, which is kind of like the underlying need that you have, you know, for fairness or safety or connection. And so you can kind of speak from that, and that kind of makes it kind of more relevant, you know, when you talk to people.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, the why does have qualities. It sounds like it's about the context of the why.
It was like, about what?
The context.
Yes.
Like if this is a context in an empathic meeting and people expect the why, it does definitely help to get deeper. And if this is in a training of like clarifying why do you want to work with us, for me, the context to help to not feel defensive. But I'm thinking if we are in a conversation with someone we don't necessarily know very well, and they keep asking you why question, I don't know for you, but that bothers me a lot if someone keeps asking me why questions nonstop, and I don't know that.
Well, why does that bother you?
See? I don't know. That's my take on that the context seems to be important as well.
So you feel judged if I say, why does that bother you? Or,
yeah.
And why do you feel judged?
If this is just a question just like that, without, why are you asking me this question?
Why are you asking me? Why am I asking this question?
I don't, it feels out of place to me.
Yeah, why does it feel out of place?
So do you want to play this game, Edwin? Because I'm getting super defensive.
Well, I'm just playing with it a little bit. So yeah, it's interesting. So yeah, you feel a bit defensive when someone asks you why. Yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
If you were telling me, so okay, let's do that now and do the 5 whys. Like I'll play along, but completely out of that, like you know, does makes me feel like, what the hell?
Yeah, so just out of the blue, somebody asks you why, it's like you feel like, why are you asking me that? And you feel defensive about it. But if there's a sort of a game that we're playing, you know the rules, then you can step into it. Otherwise, you feel a little defensive about it, or maybe even vulnerable. And
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like when your parents are mad at you and they say, why did you do that? Give me a clear explanation. Why would you do that stupid thing?
Because I'm stupid? Like, yeah, what do you answer that? Yeah, so I don't know. I find the why a bit on the edge.
Yeah. Well, that's in terms of the training we're doing with the empathy, if you kind of offer the reflection, like I just reflected a bit more and you seem kind of calmer about it, more relaxed, was what I was noticing. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I was noticing.
Yeah, no, I guess, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that kind of creates I guess a reason for, I mean, it just shows that the empathic listening is more effective for kind of getting past that defensiveness and
I think so, yeah.
Feeling kind of like somebody digging into you.
Yeah. I know, that reminds me, I know I used to be way more aggressive and assertive in my way of communicating with people. because I wanted to know so much about them that I kept asking. I used to love the whys. And it would get people defensive. I would see it constantly. And I thought it was normal because I was kind of aggressive. I did not realize that it was just the why. Not just, but. So I guess now when someone is doing it to me, I'm like, I'm very sensitive to that.
Mm-hmm.
Also because of my coaching training.
And I've told you quite a few times, Jessica, because of your coaching training, when you ask a question that helps people be aware or conscious of their feelings or their needs, and they don't answer the question, that's something I really admire, the ease where you will come back to the question. It's I know what you're doing, and I sense that they have not answered, so you go back and you re-ask the question in a different way, and it's they didn't answer because it was work to go and answer it. And I've always found, each time I notice you doing that, I find it very powerful.
Thank you. I don't let go.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yes,
and that's a coach, huh? Yeah.
Well, if I think asking question like that, it's interesting. I mean, not that I want to go too deep about that, but for my own personal coaching journey, this whole approach about empathic listening, I mean, if there's coaches listening to us and hesitating about learning about all of that, I say go for it, because I'm trying to find a way now, instead of asking almost question right away with my clients, even though I do have an alliance, a design alliance with them when they expect me asking question. But now, instead of jumping right away in that, I do the empathic listening first. And I'm trying to explore that, to see that once they are in a state of, oh, I just felt heard, the question comes way more faster. The answers to my questions comes way more faster, I think. I mean, I'm just starting to exploring with that. But in the coaching, I think that it's not necessarily clearly trained in the one I did. And so I find that approach of first do some empathy, depending on the state of the person, of course, and then ask the question. So that's my take on that chapter as well.
Wow. So it sounds like you're saying that you're questioning the coaching questions become more effective after you have created this environment of connection with the person. So they seem to have easier access to the answer of the question. That's neat.
I'm wondering, it's one or twice it happened, and I'm going to be more conscious about the pattern, if this is something I make up or if this is real, because it's what Edwin was saying just before, like, you do empathic listening, you can go deeper, and asking question, you can go deeper, but combining the two, oh my God, you can go so much more further, right? Wow. So, yeah. Anything else we want to share on the chapter before we get into practicing doing the try it?
I guess I'm wondering, why is he bringing questions into this book? Like, why is anybody have a sense of what he's... It's basically open question and closed questions, knowing the difference between the two, which, Rita, you're saying is very basic.
That's a good question, Edwin. In the try it, I was curious. He only said try the closed question. And I was like, why the hell would you try only the closed question? And he said that it was about, he's preparing the ground, and I'm guessing the whole chapter then is preparing the ground for the next chapter, forming reflections, which is not asking question, but making statement apparently. And it seems that this chapter is just kind of like a transition chapter to prepare the ground for the next chapter and the rest of the book, it sounds like to me. But I think your question is great about why does he even mention that if, asking question is a roadblock. And, it seems to me that I saw that somewhere that he was saying that that's the subject of chapter 8. At the end of page 23, often listeners are asked too many questions because they don't know what else to do. All the roadblocks in chapter 5 are not listening, then what is left? That's the subject of chapter 8.
Oh,
So that's interesting, isn't it?
So sort of saying that, people ask a lot of questions, but you can kind of go beyond that. Yeah,
and in page 24 in the try it, he said, meanwhile, have some fun with this practice exercise in which you rely on asking closed questions. This is a foundation on which you can build in the next chapter. So my understanding is like this chapter is just kind of like preparing the ground for later on and be aware of the impact of our habit of wanting to ask too many questions, why we do it, and how we can not do it. Which is why I'm wondering if it shows to just do the try it with the closed question, because, well, first of all, I think it's fun eventually, like asking the 5 whys, or like the improvisation exercise, Rita, you were talking about, to see the impact of what it is like when you ask too many questions.
Well, we actually did this in group 1, and one person would say, one thing you should know about me is I am, and then everyone would make a guess. And I remember somebody in the group thought, this isn't going to be a very good exercise, but everybody really enjoyed it. So it was actually, kind of a fun exercise.
Okay. Do you mind doing it again then?
Sure. That's what, yeah.
Sorry, my phone was ringing. Who would like to be the first speaker? So my understanding, in when if I got it right, was there's one speaker that says, I am something, and then the alternative, like listeners, we're 3 here, so 2 listeners can ask question, closed questions. So no what, no how, no tell me more, just do you. Right?
Yeah, so it'll be a yes, no answer.
Yes, and then the speaker can only answer yes and no, and do not talk about their story or whatever. It's not about storytelling.
Yeah, I'm fine with starting. If you want, I can use the same one I used before and see what happens.
Sure.
So one thing you should know about me is I am a seeker.
You're a seeker.
So you're seeking joy?
Yes.
I had to think for a moment. Do you mean that you wanted to be an archaeologist?
No.
Are you talking philosophically?
No, not really. No. No, yeah, some of those are a little hard. You ask questions that I have to really think about it if it really fits. It's not quite. It's almost like it's not a hard no. It's like not quite. So.
Do you mean that you are seeking gold?
Oh, wow. Yes. I worked in a gold mine once. I took off traveling. Obviously, I'm telling a story, but I took off traveling around California, and I got the job in a gold mine. So I did kind of start looking for gold. That was in the 70s. So.
And you're still looking?
I'm still looking for the gold. Yes, still seeking.
Do you mean you want answers?
Yeah, I want answers.
Yeah.
Did you get any answers?
Oh, yes, I did. Yes. So, yeah.
Do you always know what question to ask?
No.
Do you like asking questions?
Yeah. I enjoy it. Yep. Well, that's enough. We don't have to, if you want.
No.
If you're out of questions.
I was counting. We are at 9 questions, so that's.
Oh, how many do we do?
10.
Oh, okay. You got one more.
Oh no, sorry. I have 8. So 2 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 8. I forgot where we were. Do you? Oh yeah. Do you like asking questions? Do you always like hearing the answers?
Yes.
So you've been seeking for decades.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, that's 10. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. That's kind of fun. It's fun to have the attention. So.
Having said that, the challenge is more for you to not be able to go on and explain, because some of the questions would be questions that we ask when we are listening with empathy to get you better and to help you express, because it felt that sometimes it opened that door and you wanted to
tell a story. Yeah, and I cheated. I told a story.
You did. We heard.
Well, yeah, some of it was not quite yes, no. So it's kind of, yeah.
Oh, which one were not quite yes, no?
They were.
We only asked, do you or did you or are you?
Yeah, the gold, it's yes in a sort of a context that was, I wasn't seeking literal gold, but then I kind of did, and do have that, besides having gone gold panning, living in California, go in the mountains and go looking for gold. So I have done that. So yeah, I guess I could have been more yes, no, but it's nice to tell a little story.
It's really interesting to hear you say that it sounds like the speaker, even though it's closed-ended question, do want to tell stories.
At least I did, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's see what the other one of you says. Let's see how you feel.
Do you, what do you want us to know about you, Rita?
What you need to know about me is that I come from Belgium.
Does that mean you like cheese?
Yes.
Do you mean that you speak all the 3 or 4 languages there?
There, yes.
Does it mean you like beer?
Yes.
Does it mean you don't like the French?
No.
Good answer.
Correct.
Do you mean that you miss your country?
Not anymore.
Does it mean you want to live somewhere else?
No.
Do you mean you are a traveler?
No.
2 more questions.
Does it mean that you're curious about life?
Yes.
Does it mean that you like flying?
No.
Okay, we have 10 questions.
So it's interesting because you, Edwin, talked about being a seeker, so it's more abstract. And I said, I'm from Belgium, it's very concrete. And yet the questions that you asked, some were really definite and some really I wanted to expand and become philosophical, and it was not as simple as a yes and an or.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. But I was very disciplined.
More than me, huh? Yeah.
Exactly.
You can follow the rules. Does it mean that you follow the rules?
It's interesting as well that you both guys chose just one what's the word? Qualitative or adjective. I thought it was going to be like, I love the example that he gave, like, I am persistent, caring, stubborn, faithful, patient, creative, curious, compassionate, adventuresome. And for some reason, I thought, oh, we just give a list of adjectives and then people just ask questions about them. So we just only one adjective.
or anything else than an adjective.
Yeah, I think whatever's up, whatever comes up.
Okay. The one thing that you should know about me is that I am a woman.
Does it mean that you're very empathic?
I want to say yes and no.
Exactly. Yeah. You have to choose.
No.
No.
Does it mean you're not a man?
Yes. In my case, yeah.
Does it mean you want children?
No.
Does it mean you feel persecuted?
No.
Does it mean you're conscious of being a woman?
Yes.
Does it mean you enjoy being a woman?
No.
Does it mean you would consider changing sex?
No. It's becoming so deep. We have 8 questions now.
Does it mean you're insecure?
No. No, I'm lying, yes.
Does it mean you have problems you need to work out?
I guess yes. Okay, that's dead. That's interesting that when it's very concrete, I mean, I see myself as a woman, I identify myself as a woman, so it's not necessarily going into the non-binary gender or whatever. Also, when something sounds like a fact, it's not, it was a bit hard for you guys to come up with questions. I don't know, it was my impression.
And I also think that when we say, oh, you say you're a woman, does it mean that you insecure? So there is either, do you mean that being a woman is the cause of you being insecure, or you being insecure is just because of something totally irrelevant to that? So the way we ask the question, if you have to answer yes or no, and I wonder now, as I'm saying that, if this exercise is not for us to realize that just the subtlety of how you ask a question can either expand or narrow.
Oh yeah, and
The self-inquiry.
Mm-hmm. And what's interesting as well, and I love your point about, you know, when you ask a closed question like that, it means that you already kind of came up with your own, like, or you're imagining what it means, or like all the prejudice and the cliches.
Yes.
And I find it interesting, like, nobody asked, like, oh, so do you mean you're a very powerful person? Like, we didn't like, right away we assume that, oh, so are you feeling insecure and stuff like that, you know? So it's interesting how we are even built in our questions to have prejudices and cliché. And I consider ourselves pretty smart, white privileged, I guess, even people, and we have those prejudices, right? And so I thought it was very interesting, like, nobody got to the, so do you mean you're very powerful, or
there's a lot of insinuation, kind of.
Yeah, a lot of insinuation.
Yeah.
It sounds like the listener, the person asking the question, that it's more about them than it's about the speaker. It tells more about the way they ask the question. It tells more about them that
their own assumptions. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like I remember asking when I asked Edwin the question, do you mean that you're seeking gold? I mean, I'd love to get money right now. So for me, it's all I think about. So you mean you want gold? Like, that's where I went, because it was about me.
Yeah, so it's the questions can be a lot about us more instead of about the other person. So we're kind of bringing in our own sort of biases or energies about us instead of where the other person is.
Mm-hmm. And not only the question, it's like Marshall Rosenberg says, whatever someone thinks about you is none of your business, because it's all about them. You know, he says something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I'm learning here for sure.
Yeah, so not to take it personal or something.
Which is hard sometimes because it's so heavy.
Well, it can influence you in terms of the actions, right? Because if someone has a negative judgment of you, it's going to affect how you work together, or how you kind of, they can have, you know, they can give you a job or not give you a job if you're needing money, you know, or they can kind of open the door or close the door, or so it can affect the sort of the physical outcome. They can throw you a lifeline or not, you know, if you're like in a sinking boat or something.
You down.
Or they can push you down under the water, you know. So their judgments can, besides the verbal, it can have a physical manifestation of if you're trying to create a project do something out in the world, and people can support you or not support you with their judgment. So it can have tangible effects, those judgments, besides the energetic, just the energy of the judgment, which you can just ignore or empathize with.
Yeah. All right. We can do a quick wrap up. We are all totally on time, so I'm glad about that. And the two wrap up question I had before we can start the chat about what are we gonna do with ourselves is what was if you had one, a ha-ha moment of like, oh, I had never thought about that before, and what was a moment that you were like, not learning anything here? Who would like to start sharing?
Well, the aha moment, it wasn't so much aha, it was more about just a positive feeling, like having felt kind of constricted. If I go to bed late, I worked late, 11 o'clock, I wake up sort of low energy and kind of constricted. And so the opening mindfulness exercise was just, I felt a lot more space. And so it was more the visceral feeling. And also the casualness of exploring the topics together, not having the responsibility of facilitating. It was nice that you were facilitating. I can kind of enjoy the process more. So that was the negative. It's not really negative. It's I just wonder how I kind of want to be effective in terms of how does this contribute to building the MOOC that we're working on. So I guess sort of a question around that. It's not a negative, it's more just like how do we use the time effectively for working on that. So that's for me.
So the guided meditation helped you to be more present and spacious.
And more spacious, yeah, exactly. So it was very pleasant.
Yeah, and you enjoy that, and you enjoy also like the not having the responsibility to.
Yay!
Yeah, you do mention that before. You did mention that before as well. So it sounds like it's a bit of a relief for you not to have to do that every time.
Yeah.
And I hear your concern as well about how effective can we be? How can we be the most effective for this vision of creating this MOOC?
Yeah, that's it. Thank you for that reflection.
Yeah. What about you, Rita?
I came in thinking this chapter is boring, and I was wondering what can Jessica do with this with this chapter, and I was surprised that you brought us deeper into those questionings, and the exercise was fun, and still we had some meaningful conversations. So no, there was no boring moments for me. The meditation was very appropriate, and I enjoyed your voice in the meditation. It was soothing. I was actually wondering if you were reading or just doing it from your mind.
I always improvise that, yeah.
It was very well organized.
I've done that in the past. I actually, with one of my clients, I made that up, improvised, and I had great feedback. So I just go with the flow. Yeah. So it worked for you very well.
It worked for me very well, and it also reminded me of Mary Mackenzie's meditation that I still do regularly. It started
so you really connected with the meditation, and because your expectations were so low, so it's like, woo, we did something out of this chapter.
I was thinking at some point, oh, really? Sometimes you read something and you say, yeah. And yet, if you really start engaging and playing with it, you get so much more.
Yeah, this chapter almost became a bit more alive for you, having this work together. Yeah. Cool.
Thanks.
Yeah. And how about you?
I really like doing the guided meditation. I haven't done it in a while, so it was nice to, even for myself, because I do it myself as I go with you guys. And I was wondering myself about the effectiveness, Edwin, as I was trying to do the facilitation in my head, and I was like, I don't know what to do beside to try it. Like I did have, I was like I wouldn't say that this chapter was boring to me, but it was like, it's one of the basic things I've learned in coaching. So I was like, okay. And so I tried to come up with questions and that I would think, I really tried to think someone from outside doing the MOOC, what kind of question would be nice for them as a welcoming question. And like, so that's why I thought about making them think of how are they practicing this empathic listening that they paid online, or maybe it's free, I don't know, that they're participating online. And so yeah, I do wonder as well, like, what is effective? Like, are we doing all the exercise from the book? Is that what's effective? Are we just chatting? Is that effective for people? Are we always do empathic circles? Like I'm asking myself the same question, and a bit of nervousness because I wanted to do a good job, and I don't know what a good job is in that context. You know, I don't know what is effective for a MOOC. So yeah, I feel I tried something and see what worked.
Okay, so I'm hearing that you're also wanting to be effective, and you have a lot of questions about what effectiveness is, and you know, how would it be in a MOOC? How would it be effective? And also a sense of nervousness about wanting to do a good job. So feeling a little bit of anxiety around that too, to do a good job.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. I guess the facilitation is officially over. And before we go to the chat, I just want to invite you to stand up if you can. And when you're going to stand up, I want you to stretch and shake your hands and your feet. You know, to move a bit. You can shake your butt if you want. Oh. Nice.
Oh, yeah, that feels good.
Okay. So now it's a big question. Yeah, we lost 3 people, unfortunately.
Yeah. So.
And so I've been trying personally to think what's the best way to continue. And honestly, I did not come up with any answer. I like the 3 of us. I also feel for you, Edwin, is that a good use of your time to only do it with 2 other people? Again, is it good for the MOOC to only have 3? Are you going to be able to use any of those videos? The last thing I want to add is, since we're both, Rita and I, Francophone, I don't know, I just thought that's our leverage with Rita. And I was wondering how maybe, since we're here, if there's something about doing something in Francophone, in French, for people to have, so that maybe, yeah, having something in already 2 languages could help. I don't know. That's the reflection I went to so far.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure either what the most effective is. there's 4 groups right now. So there's a Monday group that had 6 people. 1 person dropped out, and then there was this group. And I think with Vince dropping out at first, then we didn't have the full 6. And then there's another group on Thursdays, and that one's been going for, we did the compassionate listening kind of within that group too. And that one's been, fairly consistent, that it's been pretty tight group. And now there's another one forming on Saturdays. And, initially I thought of like 6 people in a group would be a good amount, but I'm thinking maybe even 8, now that, so I don't know, I'm trying to figure it out too, like what's the most effective, what kind of works, if 3 of us, if one of us can't make it, then it's like 2 of us, so that doesn't, so I don't know, I guess it's just hearing what everyone thinks is effective, and what is even effective in general, to create kind of different activities. Like I've been creating that toolkit, so there's a whole bunch of different activities, and they're in different stages of development. So each of those activities could be, developed into a more multimedia sort of a activity. So yeah, I guess that's it. I'm gonna say. So it sounds like there's a little bit for us, for the 2 of us. It's like, well, what's the best way? We're not quite sure. So yeah. I'm curious what Rita thinks.
I have that sense of the concept of the group seems very productive and useful, because it's people who are coming together with this common purpose of creating a tool, an online something to grow empathy, to spread throughout the world. I love being part of that energy. It's something very meaningful in my heart. Now we are struggling with the amount that becomes the practical aspect of one of the practical aspects of what you're doing with the groups. You're saying, I'm toying with the idea of having 8 in a group, and as you're saying that, I'm thinking, if you have 8, if 2 drop out, it's not gonna affect the group, because you're still gonna have 6.
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, so that is definitely brings ease. I also think that 3, as much as it's fun, I love intimate groups, because I like smallness. At the same time, I'm also wondering if it makes sense for you time, and then I'm thinking, so what do we do with us? So yeah, more questions than answers, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, there's getting more people to form a group. I mean, that is the question. Does a group need that many people? Can you be effective in a smaller group? It could be even more effective too. So because it's less people to sort of organize and manage. What is it really? Yeah. So I'm not sure. Feeling a little. Not sure what the. Yeah.
For me, the lack of clarity is that I'm still not sure. I understand the vision. I'm not sure I understand the vision for the MOOC. Like I tried to look at what a MOOC is like a few weeks ago when we started, and Duolingo came up. Like there was few examples. I was like, oh, that's a MOOC, okay. And looking how it was organized, and none of them was not really helpful because none of them they were all very different depending on what was the topic. Duolingo, it's a MOOC, it's a language learning course that you learn by yourself, and you have a lot of volunteers participating in that, but there's no video or whatever. So a MOOC with videos, and I guess I'm not clear on like what are going to be used or not. I'm sure, for now I understand you put all the videos online on YouTube, but I'm sure not all of that is useful. And
yeah,
I'm a bit scared for you, Edwin, if you're going to be the only one doing editing after that. Like, I hope you'll get some support, because that's going to be a huge work of editing to really use what to use, what not to use. And so because I don't know what's usable or not, I don't know how to create videos around that, because if we can, I feel there is something we could use by just being 3. The flexibility of being so small could be our strength, depending on how we like this. If, for example, if we say we only gonna do the try it, usually you don't need 6 people. You need 2-3 people. For this exercise in particular, he said 3 to 4 people maximum, for example. So I'm wondering if we focus on how we can use what's the MOOC need, maybe we only need to meet less and do just one specific thing that's going to be usable for you. I don't know.
That's an idea, because, for example, when we did the blocks to empathy, so we that's like a clear example of, right. So we had the block, we had the title of the block, we had someone speak, we had the reflection. Everybody gave a negative, gave a block. And then we gave the positive, an actual reflection. And then each of those is, we have a title. So it made it pretty easy to kind of break it down into a video clip. And then we post it. And, it's a first prototype, and it can kind of be, refined. But each of those became like a separate video clip. All this that we're doing now is not, there's nothing really, that would be just a nightmare to go in and try to edit, to make something out of this. You need to have a bit of a plan for creating the video. You need some titles, and so there's kind of that part. So that the blocks was kind of an easy one. But I could imagine, maybe just working on one, designing an activity, and then recording the activity, and then it becomes like a sample, try it.
Yeah.
So
like
that's.
You were mentioning, you were mentioning the toolkit as well, and maybe if there's tools that requires 3 people or 2 people or whatever, maybe we can be the group that you're going to use to practice this, just the exercise and to try it, to showcase what it is. It could be something just as simple as that.
Yeah, well, the toolkit is other tools that we come up with. So it's not only the try it. I don't know if you've seen the toolkit.
I understand that. That's why I said and the try it.
And the try it. So it is try it and other activities. And each of those activities is to write up an activity, a structure for that, and to like I was just looking at the. I don't know if you ever saw this book, Grocket.
I have the cards.
Oh yeah, the cards. So they have sort of a template. There's a template for every activity, So that's what I'm sort of imagining, is that the toolkit is sort of like the Grocket, that it's there's a template and there's a video presentation of what the it's pretty much, yeah, it's like a Grocket but with multimedia, right? It's online. It's like very accessible for everyone, so you can so it's kind of like, yeah, taking one and really fleshing it out, you know, writing it up and turning it into. But another thing is that someone can adopt an activity too, right? You know, take on as an individual or as a group to create one of the activities and to create the prototype, test it out, and then keep refining it until we get like a, you know, a kind of a fleshed out, you know, higher production value activity.
So you're saying like you want some people to have, I was going to say, more of a leadership role where they could create a whole exercise, writing it down, practicing in a group, and then everybody can refine it. And then when the exercise is satisfactory, this is something the MOOC could use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it becomes a piece of the tool in the toolkit, and then it can be part of the MOOC. And then, I mean, right now we actually have about 16 lessons, right? Basically, if we do one chapter per lesson. But I could imagine it being a year-long, you know. I mean, we start with the first iteration, and then it keeps building. And I know, like the NVC New York, they have a year-long, you know, compassion training. I don't know if you ever saw that. So it could be something like that. But a multimedia training, right? That it's like that one is just they send it out by email versus, you know, like video. That instead of just reading the material, you have someone present it, and then you kind of do the exercises, and so that's, yeah, some ideas.
Yeah. So what are we saying? Are we saying that the number in itself is not necessarily a concern, beside the fact that if one of us cannot make it, we are getting too low? Is that what we're saying or not?
Well, that's what we're trying to figure out. Is it better if we have a larger group? You know, do we bring in more people, or do we kind of split into join some other groups? Or just kind of what do we do, you know, in terms of kind of effectiveness?
What is it, the relation between being effective and the numbers of people in a group? Yeah,
there is not necessarily effective if we're like creating something and we're, you know, creating a lesson and getting it up there. And so I guess it's a matter of time, you know, how many people are we working together with? If it's, if it's just two people, if there's like 6 people working on something, you know, it's just we have, but then it's a lot to manage all the people too. So it's then it can be, maybe it's even less productive, I guess.
Yeah. The thing was that you had said, if, and it makes sense, if someone joins in, if 3 people join in, we need to start from the beginning, and I'm not sure I find that exciting.
Yeah.
Even though thinking about your role, Edwin, that's what you do. You start fresh with each new group.
Yeah.
So something is working for you and being fulfilling for you.
Well, I see it as iterating. The focus is not just so much going from, you know, all the chapters. It's about using the chapters to keep refining and developing the training, right? So even going back, starting from 0, you know, it's really about how do we use the material and turn it into training. So every time we go through it, you know, I'm kind of learning more and kind of getting deeper into it. it gives time to refine the activity. So, I mean, there's quite a few, tools now in the toolkit. It's in various degrees of refinement, each activity. So I think of an idea and I put it into the toolkit, and that's something to kind of still be developed. So the point there is for me, it doesn't matter starting over or whatever, because it's about how do we create these lessons. And at the bare minimum, just going through it from through all the lessons is kind of like the minimal. We're just kind of gaining experience. Everyone's becoming familiar with it. And I just see this as continuous iteration. This is like the first prototype, and we go through it, then we go through it again, we go through it again. And and through each iteration, it just kind of becomes better and more refined.
Yeah. New perspectives. And so are we saying we're going to continue?
I'm fine with going next week, see how we go, and I don't know. So, and then think in terms of maybe, what is it we want to do for the MOOC? Do we want to take I think I was hearing, take one of the try it and then be more focused on the try it, creating an activity out of it, so that we would post.
Mm-hmm.
Does that?
Like that, yeah.
I think, what is the next one?
Chapter 8. It's your statement, making statements. Forming reflections.
Oh, this is about asking with a question mark at the end, or as a period at the end, with the higher inflection.
Yeah. I am okay continuing the three of us. I want to mention that I do have a job. One of the job I have is sometimes unpredictable, and I need to answer I need to go the last minute. So just want to mention that I committed to every Wednesday, but my priority is to be able to get some work as well.
Sure.
So I would need some flexibility, that sometimes I might be sorry, I can make it that Wednesday. So for next Wednesday seems okay. And I will let you know as soon as I can if I can make it. And I think I'm okay continuing exploring, the three of us, how we can make the best of an energy of three people. Because I do think there's some value in that.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, I think so too. It doesn't, having a bigger group doesn't necessarily mean it's, that each amount can be. In fact, on Thursdays, I get together with Celia. I don't know if she's got this site, Empathic Communication. So she's been wanting to create an online training. So we only meet with the two of us. So it's, and it's been pretty good. So
you mean she's helping you understanding how to correct an online training?
Yeah, it's something she'd been wanting to do. So it's do you have any contact with people who already created a MOOC and can help clarify how that works? Because I'm wondering if that would be a place to go as well. So people who already have done it and succeeded at it. I don't know anybody, but the one that I'm using sort of as a model is one that I've done several times, which is from the design community. It's human-centered design, and they have, and it's from IDEO, which is one of the major design organizations. And those manuals are these are actually the manuals. So they have a whole, online training, and their training is 7 weeks, or now they've extended it to 10 weeks. And what you do is you form a team of, 2 to 6 or 7 people, and then they have the online course of doing a design project. And every week you meet for 3 hours, actually, in person, or I've done it online too. And you do go through their whole design process, and everything's laid out. There's reading materials, about 2 hours of reading material, and then they have a whole framework for bringing people together, forming teams. They have something like a Facebook that's just for people connecting with each other to form teams. So it's sort of the model that I'm using, that people would go form a team and go through the course, as a team. And then they'd be doing empathic listening with each other, practicing the empathic listening. So that's like the first sort of prototype.
Okay, got it.
And then there's also another model, which is the Greater Good Science Center here at UC Berkeley. They, I feel Greater Good Science Center. They have a MOOC on happiness. So they're big into happiness research. And so they have, I don't know how many course levels, but they have video kind of lectures and then all this stuff you work through. So there's, and they've had, well over 100,000 people, take that course and growing. So those are a couple of the sort of the models, but I don't know, anyone that's done a MOOC like that. Several of the people, in the other teams have done, adult education or in universities. One of them in the Monday group is a psychiatrist, and he works at a hospital in New York. So he teaches, he's trying to figure out how to actually teach, not that the training, he's saying that most of the training is very didactic, it's more educational, theoretical, and there's not a lot of practical learning. So he's wanting, how do I teach my students the practical aspects of this? And so he's interested in, transferring it, as well as this other person I just mentioned at Pennsylvania State. So, we're kind of at the beginning of it, trying to, work it through. But, the resources are coming together. And I think if you see the site, within 2 months, we created a lot with the site already. So,
I went to the site and it felt overwhelming right away. So
so the energy is flowing.
It's moving along. So
good. All right.
So, okay, well, we'll just keep dialoguing like we're doing. This is helpful to kind of clarify it, and you both have experience in this, so this is really, really you've got a lot of background with the training too. So we'll see how we can. So I guess, next time we'll do the try it and see how we can translate that into a lesson.
Yeah.
And
let's do that next time then. All right.
Okay. Well, thanks for facilitating.
Oh, my pleasure. See you next week, hopefully.
Okay. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.